Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 10:55. Our remote location is at Raymond Laborde. Staff at Raymond Laborde, please introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Warden Marcus Myers.
Raven Heath classification. Record.
Thank you very much. Our first case is going to be Mr. Keith Turner. Mr. Turner, would you give us your full name and DOC number?
D. Darrell Turner, 128948.
Mr. Turner, let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record. Then the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow those persons who wish to have input to speak. We have here in person at headquarters, Dr. Sherlyn Turner Muse, who is your sister, and Jacqueline Muse, who is your sister. Both of them will be speaking on your behalf. At the end of that, you'll have an opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say to the board, and then we'll vote. You understand our process?
Sure.
This is the matter of Keith D. Turner, DOC number 128948. Mr. Turner's date of birth is October the 4th of 1967. He is a third-class offender. He has a parole eligibility date of October the 4th of 2012, an adjusted good time date of November 13th of 2037, and a full term date of June 11th of 2038. He is currently serving a 40-year sentence for two separate charges of manslaughter and a charge of armed robbery. Is that accurate, Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Turner, your case has been assigned to me, so I'm going to begin our interview process. Can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Mr. Turner, how old are you, sir?
55.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
Been incarcerated 31 years and a couple of months. It's July 31st, 1992.
I note that you've got 3 children. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
How old are your children?
My oldest one is 37, and my youngest is 33.
Do you have any relationship with those children?
Yes, sir. I'm in contact with all 3 of them.
Okay. Do you communicate with them, write to them, talk with them?
I talk to them on the telephone. When I call my son or my sister, I talk to them through my children's mother also.
Let's talk a little bit about, tell me a little bit about your education. How far did you go in school?
Well, I've been in special ed from elementary all the way to high school because my education wasn't too good because of the childhood life I was brought up in. I wasn't able to get a full education that I needed due to the fact that my father used to take me to the club with him at a young age, and I experienced a lot of abuse from him on my mother, and I was around alcohol, and I had a pretty rough childhood life, and
let's stick a little bit with education right now. How old were you when you quit school?
I went in 11th grade.
Okay, and what did you do when you quit school? The work. What did you do?
I started working to take care of my eldest daughter.
Okay. Now, have you ever tried to get your GED?
Yes, sir. I'm in GED class right now.
Okay. And how long have you been trying to get your GED?
For about 3 months now, sir.
Before that, did you ever try? I mean, you've been in prison for a long time. Did you ever try to get your GED before that?
No, sir. I was enrolled in a few other classes that I completed, but this is my first time trying to get my GED. I completed it.
Can you read okay?
Yes, sir. I can read, write.
Write okay?
My understanding is good. My most hardest subject is math. I always did have problems with my math.
I think most of us would say math is probably our hardest subject. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about drugs and alcohol. Did you use drugs or alcohol?
Yes, sir, I did. I used drugs and I used to sell drugs.
Well, let's talk about drugs. When did you start using drugs?
At a young age, at about 14 to 15 years old.
What did you start using?
Marijuana, and I was brought up around alcohol and and beer and things from early childhood.
And how often were you using marijuana as a young boy?
I was a casual smoker, saying like once or twice a week. But drinking, did have a drinking problem. I picked that up from my father.
Did you progress on to other drugs besides marijuana?
Yes, sir. The older I got, I became involved with drugs, cocaine, crack, and that was the furthest it went from crack.
How often were you using cocaine and crack cocaine?
Not too long, not long at all.
Well, you say not too long, what does that mean? When did you start?
I started using crack probably at the age of 17 or 18, and it didn't last long. It was just a few months.
Did you continue to use marijuana, smoke marijuana?
So I quit smoking marijuana.
And drugs?
And I kept drinking, but the drugs, I quit using weed, selling weed and everything. I was focused on maintaining my job.
Let's talk about the alcohol. How much alcohol were you drinking?
When I did drink it, I used to drink quite a bit. But I never was out of control with it. I always was able to function straight.
Well, a lot of alcoholics say that. Do you consider yourself to be an alcoholic?
Yes, sir.
Tell me why.
Well, like I say, from a young age, I picked up my drinking habits from my father. Being with him and the way he used to take me to the club with him at a young age, and then the older I got, it just carried on me. I mean, when he allowed me to drink at a young age, and I thought it was okay, and the older I got, I just went from the small stuff to the big stuff.
Have you ever had treatment on the outside?
No, sir. I had family members of my mother used to come talk to me, and like a counselor, you remember, but not certified counselor.
Now, your record suggests that you had at least 2 DWIs.
Yes.
Is that correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Now, when you got the DWIs, did you go to jail for 6 months, or did you get put on probation?
I got put on probation.
Okay, now, wasn't part of the sentence of your probation to get a substance abuse evaluation and follow whatever treatment they recommended?
I'm not sure, sir. It's been so long. It's been so long.
Well,
DUI.
okay, well, let me ask it this way. You don't remember taking any treatment as a part of your probation on any of your DWIs?
No, sir.
So tell me about what kind of treatment you have had since you've been in prison or otherwise, because I'm concerned about your alcoholic problem.
I took anger management classes, thinking for a change.
Let's stay on substance abuse right now. We'll get to the other classes that you've taken. Thinking for a change might be something that might be germane to your substance abuse issue, but I'm more interested in right now in our discussion is about your alcoholism. What have you taken while you've been in prison that's going to help you stay sober when you get out?
I took NAA, that's an alcohol and anonymous class. I took that before the pandemic.
Okay, so tell me what you got out of that and what did that mean to you?
But being able to control your drinking problems and just making good decisions and knowing who is good company and who is bad company.
Have you ever had any long-term substance abuse treatment? Did you go to Blue Walters? Did you do Steve Boyle? Have you done any sort of long-term substance abuse treatment?
No, sir. No, sir.
AA is good. I mean, that's a great program. The 12 steps are wonderful, but that's more education than it is treatment. So you've never had any treatment for your alcoholism?
No, sir.
Do you think that's something that might be helpful for you?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about some of the other programs that were important to you.
I completed Thinking for a Change, Victim Impact, and Pre-Release. And those 3 classes.
Let's
helped me
talk about Thinking for a Change. What did you learn in Thinking for a Change?
learn a lot. Being able to think before you make a decision. Being able to think, make a right decision. Analyzing the situation and being able to think. And Victim Impact, I learned how to feel pain that from victims feel. The pain and the loss of a loved one, a family member. I learned, because I went through that experience in 07. I had a granddaughter that was killed in 07, 4-month-old granddaughter. So I put myself in the victim shoes and feel their pain.
Now you said you didn't like, you quit cocaine, which is good, and you quit smoking the marijuana, but you sold drugs. How long did you sell drugs?
Not too long, sir.
What did you sell?
Marijuana, weed. And I also sold
what did you learn, if anything, while you've been in prison about selling drugs?
I learned that selling drugs it's not a good idea. It's bad. It could be a danger to myself and other people too. It could cause death to the other person who you're selling it to, and it could cause death in many ways. Not just me. It could be a life-changing decision. Selling drugs to someone and the results, the things that they could do after they get under the influence of drugs.
Let's talk about what happened in 1992. You and Mr. Theory shot 2 people. One died and one lived. Tell me what happened back then. What was going on with you? Who were you then? And how did that happen?
That person then, 31 years ago, I'm not that person. I'm a totally changed person. But the
Okay.
man
Well, let's talk about what you did back then. What that person did back then and why.
Well, I wasn't under the influence of no alcohol. No, I just made a stupid decision. I made a bad decision. I mean, I hurt someone for no reason. No reason at all. And I regret it to the fullest. And I'm very remorseful.
What happened and why did it even happen? We all arguing, fighting, or what?
No, it was a robbery. It was a robbery, a drug deal that went bad at the time, and 2 people got shot, and one lived and one didn't.
Well, whose drug deal?
Sir?
Whose drug deal? Who was dealing the drugs?
It was a so-called friend that I thought was my friend. It was his deal. I was there, but that makes me as guilty as them. I mean, I was there. I was involved, and it just made me as guilty as the driver of the car, the man who pulled the trigger, that makes me as guilty as all of them. I was there, I was involved, not just my involvement.
Were you involved in the selling or the buying of the drugs?
No, sir, I didn't sell the drugs or anything. I was involved. I didn't sell any drugs. I didn't.
Did you go there with the intent of robbing someone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You knew a gun was going to be involved?
Yes, sir.
So tell me what happened several years later while you're in prison. What happened in that case in 1998?
98, I got involved with prison activity that I shouldn't have. I made a stupid decision, and at the end, it became violent, and it became,
Well, tell me what happened that day. I mean, the police report suggests that you hit this fellow with a sling blade, and he ultimately died later as a result of the strike. So tell me what happened. Tell me how that came about.
Well, the night before the incident, me and this inmate had a few words, and it had got physical. And the next day, when we went out in the field, we had a conversation, and the conversation got heated, and words was exchanged, and he told me something, and I responded, and he had a tool, I had a tool, and I lost my cool.
And now that you've had an opportunity to be in prison for as long as you have and to reflect back on both of those crimes, tell me what you think about what you did back then and why you wouldn't do that again.
I made a stupid decision. I know for a fact that I wouldn't even get involved in that kind of activity. I mean, that was stupid of me to get involved in that type of activity.
Well,
And
the
I
type
was-
of activity, I mean, I understand. I mean, I understand what was going on. But it seems to me that this is an anger issue. You got angry. You know, you're going to get angry at people regardless of what kind of relationships you have or what kind of dealings you do. When you get out, you're going to get angry at people. It's just life. I mean, we all get angry. But, you know, we have to control our anger. We can't go around hitting people or killing people because we're mad at them. It's normal to get angry with someone, but it's how you deal with that anger. So how are you going to be, what have you learned to be able to deal with your angry feelings?
Well, over the years, I've learned how to control my anger, talk to someone that I can trust, that understand that my anger, that, you know, they can talk to me and tell me something positive to control my anger. And you know, I've tried to, you know, become a better person by being a role model, you know, just trying to make better from younger guys, younger inmates in here. I've tried to be a role model to them and tell them right from wrong and things, you know, try to better myself, try to better the next person too. And it was just, you know, it was a stupid decision in me to get involved in that type of activity in prison. And I regret it to the fullest, and remorse.
You've had 52 write-ups. When was your last write-up?
My last write-up was in 2019, I believe.
And what was that for?
A Rule 5.
And what happened? With the facts?
Well, me and a female security guard had a misunderstanding. I was trying to explain to her about the way she was kind of talking to me, and she wrote me up, and it was a misunderstanding.
Well, you were trying to explain. You got angry with her? Y'all exchanged words?
Was just trying to simply tell her that you know, she didn't have to talk to me the way she did was, because, you know, I was, you know, I'm pretty old, you heard me? And she took it the wrong way, and she hit the beeper, and then I was locked up and put in the cell on a Rule 5. I mean, I didn't talk to her disrespectful or anything. But before that, I mean, since I've been here, I mean, every job I done had, I want to thank the Warden for allowing me to have the jobs I have, and, you know, and the jobs I have had, I've always been highly complimented about the way I held my job and maintained my job and cleanness about myself and, you know, about security guard. And, you know, I really have been trying. I really have been trying to humble myself over the years and better myself.
Mr. Turner, if you were to get an early release and get out the next couple of weeks or months or so, what would the first thing you do to make sure you stay sober?
The first thing I would do, I would go to somebody's church house and give thanks to my higher power and thank the Lord. And, you know, and from there I would start a positive life. I mean, I want to be a positive influence to my grandkids, to my children, and maybe some other kids too. I would like to go to some schools if possible, if I can, and be a vocal speaker to young kids that's maybe on the road down the wrong road, that's, you know, that may be going down the same road I went down, you know, to try to talk to them. If I could change one person, one little child, you know what I'm saying, change his life from living the life I live, you know what I'm saying, I'm accomplished something. That's what I intend on doing.
Where would you live? Where would you be living?
In Baton Rouge with my sister, Jacqueline Muse.
What kind of work would you be doing?
I have 3 people that's willing to give me a job doing construction work, working at the plant. I have 3 people that's willing to give me a job as soon as I'm free.
Have you learned any vocational skills while you've been in prison?
Yes, sir. I'm a pretty well experienced man. I have a mechanic, porter. I know how to do yard work. I'm pretty well experienced.
Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Turner?
That the man.
No, he's talking.
Sir?
He's talking.
Oh, he's talking.
I have 2 notes, Mr. Marabella, Mr. Turner's file that we had a long discussion about yesterday. Education and substance abuse treatment. Okay, and he's enrolled in both. He made it to the 11th grade, and we will get him that education. We will get him that GED if you allow me that opportunity. And he is enrolled in our Living in Balance program. I would like to see him complete both phases of that, and because I think he needs those tools, very important tools, to get him out and keep him out. So those are my two notes on him: education and substance abuse program.
Thank you, Warden.
He is a
Yeah.
Strive. I do want to say that, Mr. Marabella, he is a Strive member. His conduct history has improved greatly in the last few years. So I think he's on the right track. I do want to say that about him.
I have one question. Good morning, Mr. Turner. You were enrolled in anger management at one time, but you didn't complete it. Do you remember what happened?
Man, I believe that was before the pandemic, and,
Oh,
and
okay.
during the pandemic, they had shut a lot of classes down.
Oh, okay, then you never got back in it, huh? In anger management?
Man.
Okay, all right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from your supporters. Dr. Muse. Ma'am, if you would go up to our podium there. Yes, ma'am.
My brother and I have always brothers. And, I had both of my parents to die in my home. And, before my mom and dad died, they wanted so much for my brother to get out. And when my mother started transitioning, God was showing her a vision of my brother out. And she woke up and she said, keep this out. You know, and my parents, they just wanted to really see him come out. And it's 6 of us. And none of us have had trouble with the law. And me and the youngest sister, and he's the youngest brother, we're about a year and a couple of months apart. And, you know, my dad's 40, you know, and my dad didn't have a drinking problem. And he didn't have it fair. You know, he really didn't. I'm not making excuses for him, but he didn't have it fair. You know, there were things that was done in the home with him, you know. And some of these he didn't even say, like chaining him to the table, you know, like only allowing him to go so far. And I know God has been with me, brother, because he wouldn't have been able to make it this far without God. You know, and I'm familiar with some of his health issues. Sister here is over that. Through all of these years, God has kept his health. I think he's only had one tooth to be extracted. And we've always covered my brother in prayer. You know, and I've talked to him from the beginning even to now. And I know my brother has changed. You know, and I really truly beg you all to give him a chance. We're praying. I know that it's in his heart that he does want to do. And you know, we want to be able to see him get out and do it. And you know, he said, first place that he wants to go is to my mom and dad's cemetery. He owed that to them. He wants to make us proud. But most of all, he wants to do it for himself because he knows it's in him. You know, he had people in the family talking to him. Not everybody let him know. And even before my father passed, he was very remorseful for what he did to people, the way he raised him. Even Dad would change the way he got. He stopped drinking. He stopped the abuse. You know, I hate that he wasn't able to actually see how him and my mother bonded. But at some point, it really did go there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we're here from Ms. Jacqueline Muse.
My brother and I were a little bit different from my other two sisters. They were girly girls. I was Tommy boy. So my brother and I did things like riding on the bicycle. I did the handlebars and he pumped me. We played basketball at the basketball court up the street in the subdivision. And a lot of times he would say, no, you can't go with me. It's just gonna be boys. And I said, going anyway. We had that little bond. But through the last few years, I mean, the whole time that he's been incarcerated, I often witnessed to him, telling him things like, trust God for everything. Trust God for everything. Those feelings that you're having that you want to subdue, ask God to take them away from you. Remove those feelings until you're a free man and able to use them like God intends for you. So throughout this whole time, we have been witnessing to him, just telling him, just because of your situation, you still have to stay focused. Do what God would have you do. Those fleshly feelings that you're having, God can take those away and preserve them for you, and then have you use them when it's time. Nevertheless, the last few years, Keith has really been telling me with his mouth that he's really sorry about the life that he lived, the decisions that he's made. He's sorry about the pain that he caused, not just us, but the victim's family, his children, his children's mom, who didn't have any help with her children and her grandchildren. So he wants to come home so he can try to help with his grandchildren. He has told me that I'd like to go in these schools and speak to these young boys with their pants hanging down and shirts open. I want to speak to them and tell them, let them know that you're on the wrong road. And I've told him that would be, and I said, you're not going to reach everybody. If you reach one, you've done what God expects for you to do. So he has told me repeatedly, as soon as I hit the ground, I'm going to see my mom and dad. As soon as I hit the ground, I need him. I lost my husband back in February. I don't have a man figure around the house. I mean, I tell my son all the time, who was 29 years old, if my brother was home, I wouldn't have to ask him to change my oil, wash my truck, cut the grass. I wouldn't have to. I know I wouldn't have to. He was that even at a young boy, because he was a young boy when he was in prison. But I mean, even now he tells me, please do not get involved with a man that's gonna abuse you or take advantage of you. Please do not. So I feel confident that he is mentally and thankfully physically where he needs to be to do the work that God wants him to do.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Turner, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before the board votes?
Yes, sir. I would like to thank Warden Myers, Warden Turner for allowing me to get into these programs to better myself. I would like to thank Ms. Heath. I would like to apologize to my family, but first and foremost to the victim family, and from the youngest to the eldest. I would like to apologize to the community, to the police department, and everybody who I've hurt and affected mentally and physically over the years. I would like to apologize for my actions. I was young, I was immature, and I didn't have no sense of direction. But over the years, I've learned, I've grown up, I've matured a whole lot, great deal, and I'm truly have changed. And if you give me a chance, I promise I will make a positive influence to my kids, my grandkids, my sisters, nephews, and maybe hopefully young kids as well. I just want to be a positive influence.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I thought you'd finished.
I just want to be a positive influence, whether it's with my family or the kids around the community. I just want to be a positive influence. Tell my story and hopefully, that they would change their ways and start living a positive life. The prison is not the place. I truly regret living the life I did, making decisions I did, and all. It was just
Thank
hard.
you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can we ready to vote? All right. Mr. Turner, and I've listened to you. You've got good family support. You need, you're moving in the right direction. I think you've turned the corner. As I look back on your crimes, I mean, you're in prison for 2 separate killings. A long time ago, and you've done a lot since then. I'm very concerned about your substance abuse. I've got some experience. I'm not a counselor or anything like that, but I was a drug court judge for 14 years and worked with people who had substance abuse issues. And what I'm hearing from you is that you want to go help people and help other people. And I realize that that's one of the things that a lot of times people want to do. But before you can help other people, you have to help yourself. And I think that you need some significant work in the substance abuse field. I think that I'd love to see you get some long-term substance abuse treatment. I know the warden indicates that you're in living in balance, which is certainly helpful to you. You're trying to get your GED. You're moving in all of the right directions. But for me today, with law enforcement opposition, in the fact that I think you need some more programs, I'm just not ready to vote to release you early. But if you get some substance abuse treatment and you work on your GED, I think that once you do that, maybe you can reapply. And if I'm on this board at that time, I'd likely vote for you. But today, my vote is to deny. Ms. Wise?
Mr. Turner, likewise, I do have some concerns, but you do have a low tiger, and you have served a lot of time, and you have a very good transition plan. So I'm hopeful for you. So my vote is to grant after you complete anger management and after you complete the programs that's set forth by the warden. That's my vote conditionally.
Mr. Freeman?
My vote, I look at it, and as Judge Marabella stated, you did commit 2 murders. The second, while you were in jail, premeditated to me. You had told the inmate the night before that y'all not have to worry about that inmate no more. And so my vote is to deny.
Mr. Turner, you have 2 votes to deny, 1 vote to grant. Your parole today has been denied, but I think we're giving you some encouragement. I hope you get into the programs, continue the programs that you're working on, and perhaps the next time will be the time. So continue to work hard. Good luck to you, sir.
All right, thank you all for coming today. We appreciate it.